Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll hear inspirational stories of heart-centered leaders who have awakened to their higher purpose and taken that leap of faith to follow their heart and make an impact in the world. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with your host, Jennifer Spohr.
I am super excited and overjoyed to welcome as a guest to the show today, Sabrina Permuth. She is progressive in her approach to leadership. She leverages big picture thinking to identify trends and opportunities and communicate initiatives and lead change. Her career in the public sector allows her to give back to the community at large, and she has ignited a passion for volunteerism. Sabrina is a mental health advocate who proudly serves on the board of a Tampa nonprofit. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So happy to have you. Sabrina, what inspired you to get into the work that you're doing today?
I guess it's been a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. And they say hindsight is 2020. And so, haha, 2020 now. But
oh yeah, back, I get it. It took me a second. I'm like, oh yeah, 2020, right.
Looking back, it's like stepping stones throughout my entire life has kind of led me to where I am now. My career journey was interesting. My very first job in high school was at Chuck E. Cheese, and that was so much fun. And I paid my way through college waiting tables, and so I knew through those two jobs that I wanted to work with people and be heavily involved with people, but I wasn't sure where I was going to land. And I spent some time in HR and then in operations, and I'm finally back in HR, and I ended up in the public sector very much by accident, and have really found a blessed place to work, a family at work, and it happened literally by accident. I wanted to spend some more time advocating for mental health, and my previous role just did not allow for that. And so I've kind of found that happy medium where I can go to work, leave my work at work, and then be able to do the things that I love after work. So I want to say it was by accident, but I know it wasn't. It was the universe guiding me and trying to pay attention to those signs that led me to where I am. I found that Tampa Bay was lacking in the mental health services that it offered the community while going through my journey with my son, which I've written about quite a bit on LinkedIn. And that's just been my therapy for processing and unpacking those emotions that go along with that. And so I'm happy to say that I finally found a balance that's really working for me.
That's awesome. And I mean, there's so much to unpack from what you just said. You know, what you said about that you were sure it wasn't an accident. It's so true. It's like everything is a sign and everything is cause and effect. And it would seem natural that you would end up doing work that you're doing today based upon your love for people. You know, I don't know who said the quote originally, but, you know, follow your bliss. It's true. I mean, we're the most successful when we're doing work that lights us up inside, you know, that we're talented at and just that we really love.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the things that I learned. I spent 6 years in a job that was really kind of muting my fire. I could never really be passionate and grow and love what I was doing. And it finally got to the point where I was doubting my own capabilities. And my husband's like, you've got to do something. This isn't the wife I married. This is not the person that I know. And it all came to a head finally. And I realized how much someone's work environment can impact them as a person. Because there were a few months there that I was just certain that I was not going to be able to find another job and that nobody else would think I was good enough. And that negative talk that I got, it was like a loop I got stuck in and I couldn't break out of. But I think worse of all, I couldn't identify it was happening when it was happening. You know, it's been since time has moved on that I've been able to, I don't know if the word is appreciate, but really see what I was doing to myself and the barriers I was putting upon myself. And I was fortunate enough to be able to share that transition journey on LinkedIn, and having complete strangers support me and cheer me on. I've never experienced anything like that. And I always call it the magic of LinkedIn, and it became such a valuable tool in not only my job search, but also now it's like a part of what I want to do every day and how I want to express myself.
I can completely identify with what you're saying, and I was in that place several years ago as well, staying in a job that I was no longer feeling challenged in, but staying there, right? Because I had the same fear.
That's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. So many of us are taught to believe that life has to be lived in this cookie cutter way. And
right.
I finally just got to the point where I was at felt so painful that my pain of where I was at exceeded my fear of leaving.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do today, is because, hopefully to help other people avoid that same fate, right? It's like, if you're feeling anything less, I would say, if you're feeling anything less than, contentment and joy in your life, pay attention to that, because feeling out of alignment just simply means that something needs to change, right?
Yeah, I think I finally understood that when I was talking with my therapist and we were talking about anxiety. And she explained it to me like this. She's like, you are addressing your anxiety when it's at an 8 or a 9. And she goes, by the time it gets to an 8 or a 9, it spirals out of control and there's very little you can do to help get yourself through it. She's like, what you need to learn to do is identify those cues when you're at a 1 or a 2. And that way you know how your body is responding to stress, and you can implement so many mitigation measures to prevent it from ever getting to that 8 or 9. And it's like a light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, oh my God, yes. And so I've gotten into a practice of just my day-to-day life. Okay, let's identify the early signs at work. Let's identify the early signs so that an issue doesn't become this huge, uncontrollable, out of control feeling. Because even in the moment, even though you're feeling that way, it's not. But once you get overwhelmed and just bombarded with that helplessness, it's hard to back out of it. And so that is a conversation that I try to have with our employees too, is, hey, before we get there, what's happening now so that we can prevent from getting there in the future? And I think it's just a valuable tool that everybody should learn how to implement in their daily routine.
What you're saying is gold. What you're saying can apply to every area of life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like recognizing those early signs, and so many people do it with everything. And I've been guilty of it too. We wait until we reach a point of frustration, and then we react rather than being proactive. It's so important.
Yeah.
Sabrina, every experience in our lives shapes who we are. What experience in your life do you feel has been most significant in shaping who you've become today?
So, that's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about, and there wasn't probably one definitive moment, but I think the event that caused me to really step back and evaluate life and the priorities and how I wanted to live it was when I left New Orleans because of Katrina. It was a time where time almost stood still. It impacted every person that I know, not unlike COVID, but going through COVID is so much different because with Katrina, we were just a small portion of the population that was going through it. And it was so hard to find the resources that you needed to just, my son was in the first grade, just get him back in school and reestablish a household. With COVID, we're all working together as one unit, one cohesive unit globally. I mean, LinkedIn makes the world feel small, but this is making the world feel small. But during Katrina, it was, the 1 million people that were impacted directly in the city. Sure, there were other areas that were impacted, but at that time in my life, I was in my late 20s and very focused on my world and the immediate impact of it. It just felt like we were isolated and alone and nobody could help. And it gave me the first chance that I had to really take a step back and understand what is my body trying to tell me, through headaches and stomach upset. And there were just these tremendous things that were changing daily activities, and learning about increasing my energy vibrations and unlocking my chakras, which has really come into handy now, because back when I was trying to do all that, then I had no idea what I was doing and what I was reading, and I couldn't comprehend it all. And now I have such a better understanding. But that's when that shift where Sabrina became just a little less selfish, and what happens in our lives, how it impacts everything else, the people around me. I was certain that God had set me to a group of angels. I tell everybody, moving after Katrina, it was like effortless to some extent, because every time I had an issue come up, there was somebody right there that was able to help me solve it. And it just worked out organically, in a way kind of that's happening now with COVID. I haven't been stressed, knock on wood. I haven't been overwhelmed, because just it's working out. I have this support group at work that we work so cohesively together. And again, I don't think it was an accident that I ended up where I'm at now, because if I was in my previous role, it would be completely stressful, because it was an event management role. And when you can't have events, you have to make really hard decisions about what you're going to do with your employees. And companies like Busch Gardens, they're laying off 95% of their workforce. And that is not a fun place to be when you're in HR.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Prior to starting my business a few years ago, I used to work in the retail industry, and there have been massive furloughs and layoffs across that industry as well. Sabrina, what role do you feel that your faith played in your experience with Katrina?
Everything. I talked to a priest shortly after Katrina, just trying to reignite my connection with Jesus and the church. And he said that, and I was telling him how amazed it was that I had become so faithful. And I went to an all-girls Catholic school for high school in New Orleans. Literally, like, everybody is Catholic. When I went to Florida State, I was like, well, you're Catholic too, right? And they're like, no, we're not. There's actually more religions than Catholicism. So I knew I had the backbone of a good foundation, but it wasn't until Katrina happened that I became faithful, that I learned to trust that if you give it up instead of try to control it, then things will happen for you. One of my trigger words, one of the words that I go back to when I'm feeling anxious, is surrender. I literally started my journey in learning how to surrender to that unknown, that gut feeling that you get, the intuition in the back of your mind. It was the first time that I had the opportunity to explore why all that was happening to me, and how I could make that work in my life. And for me, it's been about learning how to make that work for the community. Because after Katrina, the Tampa Bay community here welcomed me with open arms. People donated furniture for my house and a bicycle for my son, and all of these things that I just could never have imagined would ever happen. We were just so blessed. And it made me realize that I had to continue paying that forward to other people. And it's been a journey learning about how I want to do that and where I can have the biggest impact. Because it's one thing to want to do something, but it's another thing to effectively do it. And I say this to employees all the time. Don't confuse motion with progress, because you can be in a Jeep on the beach with the tires spinning and not go anywhere. So there's motion, but there's no progress. And so I think faith has taught me to understand that if I pay attention to the small cues, I will make the progress happen and become the person that I was born to be, because we are the only us, right? I tell this to my girls all the time. You are the only you, and that's your gift. And so learn how to share that with others. And that's what I've been doing.
You just wrapped all of that up in one nice big red bow. I love that. There's so much that you said, right, about surrender, because although most people say that they believe in God or a higher power, right, it's easy to say that when we perceive that things are going our way. The real test of our faith is when things aren't going our way. It's trusting that there is a world out there, a purpose and a reason why things are happening that is so much bigger than us, and just really trusting and focusing on being present and what we can control, and then turning the rest over to God. And then what you said about basically, doing the work that you want to do, and how that's a path, right? And that's a process. Mm-hmm. That's so key, because I believe, and I teach others that each one of us, God has put a purpose on our heart, a greater work that we're meant to do. But also what's just as much part of our purpose here is living purposefully, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And I don't think it's easy to live purposefully. And I think that's a lot of times why people don't do it, because it takes work and it takes heavy lifting. I can remember one time I had applied for, and this was decades ago, I had applied for a job, and they looked at me and they said, "We don't think you can do the heavy lifting. That's why we're not selecting you for the job." And that just it stopped me in my tracks, because I'm like, what are you talking about? I've got this fire, I'm passionate. What do you mean I can't do the heavy lifting? And there's just a huge difference between wanting to do it and being able to do it, and being able to do it knowing that you're not always going to understand why you're doing it. And I think people sometimes get hung up and afraid because they can't get to the why, and they just have to. Sometimes you just have to do it and believe that it's going to work out the way it's supposed to in the time that it's supposed to. I think oftentimes we get stuck because we want our timing to work out. And life is just not,
there's our timing, and then there's divine timing, right? It's like our timing is according to a favorable outcome for us, right? Divine mm-hmm. timing, it's understanding that in order for us to receive our desires, there are a lot of moving parts, which often include other people who have free will in their decisions. So it's trusting that when something isn't working out the way we perceive it should, that it is going to work out, and often in even better ways than we can imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think my life is a testimony to that, because, 18-year-old Sabrina went and said, I really hope that, my son's father is going to commit suicide, and that I lose everything in a flood, and that I spend, a month and a half in quarantine, and all of these things that, if you look at individually, just seem so daunting. But wow, the blessings and the positivity that has come out of each and every one of those steps has been more profound than I would have ever had words to articulate. Better than I ever would have imagined. Snuggling with my kids whenever I want to. What? This has been great. It's frustrating and it's hard. And, my 6-year-old struggles with homeschooling and just is dynamite independent. But just having the ability to hear them articulate their thought processes and give me the examples that they must be asking their teachers, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, what a gift to see that side of your kids. Such a gift. And all of those experiences have equipped you
Yeah.
to be the strong person that you are today, right? That is able to be an awesome mom and to lead so many other people.
Yeah. I still don't understand how teachers don't get through the day without dropping an F-bomb, but I leave that to the professionals. So.
You know what it is? When you are in alignment with your purpose, there's a desire on your heart, right? And when there's a desire on your heart, and I know I feel this way about the work that I do, there aren't all easy days, but it's a labor of love. It truly is. I would imagine that that's how some of those teachers feel.
Yeah, I'm excited about Teacher Appreciation Week this year because I think it's more significant than it's ever been before, because I've gotten the chance to walk a mile in their shoes, and I realize how hard it really is. Like, it's really hard keeping my kids focused and keeping them excited about reading and writing when they don't want to do it. And so I definitely have a newfound love for teachers.
Absolutely. Sabrina, there are no doubt people who are listening right now who are at a crossroads in their life and feeling called to make a change, to do something to make a bigger impact. What advice would you have for them to be able to take action in that direction today?
Trust the process. Know that you can't pick and choose all of the things that happen in your life, but trust that all of those things have to happen to fulfill your mission as an individual. Know that it's okay to have bad days and to cry. I used to think that I shouldn't be crying. The Fergie song, Big Girls Don't Cry, you can't cry. It's not worth crying about. Heck yeah, it's worth crying about. I mean, you wouldn't want to cry if it wasn't worth crying about. And tears and crying is so cathartic, and it gets you to that next point, and it helps you process those emotions that you're probably trying to avoid. And I think that was a difficult part of the journey for me, is because I don't want to be that emotional person. I can get fired up and passionate about something, but I don't want to share with you what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. All that is very uncomfortable for me. And it's for a number of reasons. It was how I was brought up, and just the way I was internalizing dealing with things in my past. And just to tell people it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to feel like you need help. And it's okay to ask for help. And that even when you don't see it, even when you can't feel it, it is there. And find a way to connect with that and find whatever that is for you. And for me, it was doing the energy work. It was trying to figure out what my body was trying to tell me. And it was just learning to be still. Now that I build in quiet time into my day, I do a much better job of managing my anxiety, my depression, because I allow myself to just stop. And I think that's one of the things about the quarantine is we've learned, hey, we don't have to have something to do every hour of the day. It's okay not to have somewhere to go and a place to be and people to see. And I love the fact that we're all reprioritizing that. And hopefully our kids won't be overscheduled like they were before. And hopefully they understand that you don't have to be next to somebody, but you can still feel connected. And I think sometimes when we're having bad days, we don't feel connected to the others that are around us. But if you learn, and for me, it's journaling, if you learn how to connect to something greater than yourself, you will get through it.
So much wisdom in that advice. And I know that so many people can relate to being brought up to suppress their emotions. I believe the same as you, and that is that, we have to process what we're feeling in order to be able to heal and move forward. And it's okay not to feel okay sometimes.
Mm-hmm. The day that I realized that when I feel like I'm going to cry, I have something going on that I've been ignoring and I need to address was a game-changing day for me. And it wasn't on my own. I didn't get to that on my own. Somebody had to tell me. Somebody had to point out, Sabrina, the reason why you're crying is because you've got to be able to move past it and move through it. And most of the time you can't go around it. And somebody also told me you can't get off the ride. You know, if life were a merry-go-round, you just got to stay on, and you got to go around, and you got to go around, even when you feel like you can't. And I think from a depression, anxiety standpoint is I would love for people to know that it's okay to have days like that, but you will get through it. You will get past it. And every storm runs out of rain. Tomorrow the sun will rise, I assure you. And so hang in there, reach out for support, do whatever you need to do to get through that moment that will end. That moment will end. Don't choose to end it, because I saw it with my son. You know, he just could not put his head around why his dad would want to leave his life. And it wasn't about that at all. But to a kid, that was what happened. His dad wanted to leave his life. And I hope that if people can focus on the fact that there are other people, even though they may not see it and they might not feel it and they might not overtly know it, there are people that are looking to them for love and support, and they need to get better and feel better for those other people, if nothing else pulls them through.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I always thought my son used to call his dad's phone after his dad had died, and I always thought, like, if his dad could have heard those messages when he was alive, I thought he probably would have made a different decision, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what you said is so important. You know, there's always somebody out there that cares.
Yeah.
Always. Sabrina, how can someone find you if they want to connect with you?
So I am primarily on LinkedIn, and I kind of ebb and flow with my engagement, but I try to be as engaged as possible. But I've learned to be forgiving of myself. So I'm not one of those folks that has a set routine where they're always posting on Saturday, and that's not me. I come and go. I'm in and out. I also like to share pictures of my family and what's going on in my world on Instagram, which is worth 1,000 words. So please feel free to connect with me there. And I'm at the tax collector's office in Hillsborough County. I did have somebody from LinkedIn call me there one time. So I guess that is a way to find me too.
Yeah, definitely. Sabrina, I just adore you.
I adore you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and for sharing more about your life. I know that so many people can relate to your experiences, and no doubt, you know, this is inspiring people to move forward on their higher path. So I honor you and I thank you for that.
Thank you. And, you know, if somebody just needs somebody to listen, I don't have all the answers, but I always have time to listen. So feel free to reach out to me for that too.
Oh, thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you for listening to the Awake and On Purpose podcast. Please visit us and subscribe to the podcast at awakeandonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can connect with your higher purpose and take that leap of faith to make your impact in the world, visit us at jenniferspor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join our email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.